Hello friends! In this chaos of information obesity in which we live, it's very difficult to discern the truth even for a journalist. But I will give some guidelines to help us to understand the world of the media of mass destruction and even propaganda. The purpose of journalism is to inform, educate and entertain, but there is no interest in informing or educating correctly, but only in entertaining and manipulating as much as possible, so that the information media have become propaganda media. In any case, it's better to have a diversity of opinions than the single thought imposed by force. Opinion article: Information warfare, weapons of mass destruction. Your mind is the battlefield. The internet has empowered the people. Everything is delivered in electronic packages. You don't report the good but the bad. There is a society of information obesity. Public opinion revolt on Wall Street. Manipulation of thought is everyday life. Almost nothing you believe is based on the senses. IMF chief warns of a lost generation. Russian video shows the moon as a hologram. Some physicists believe we live in a giant hologram. The worst thing for the state is destruction, according to Aristotle. Let's start. A neuropsycho-cybernetic war is being waged against yourself, and your own mind is the battlefield, according to Mike Adams. Through this mechanism, weapons of mass destruction can be deployed, allowing them to carry out all sorts of plans, while distracting conscious attention through the use of cleverly designed fantasy, as in the movie Matrix. The good battle of the mind is not to argue with the opponent. He wants us to argue with him. He offers us perfect theories, reasoning and arguments. The best we can do is to respect each other's opinion without entering into conflicts or arguments, but to learn from everyone if they provide reasonable information. The use of the phrase "weapons of mass destruction" by Joseph McCormack as an introduction to his latest book, Noise, is a great way to provoke a debate on the context in which we move. His so-called new information obesity society, characterized by an unnecessary, unhealthy, and high risk of overweight due to an excessive exposure to information, disinformation or counter-information, to which we are subjected in this technological madness that invades us, according to John Aswa. In communication technology, noise is an unwanted signal. Any unwanted signal that is mixed with the useful signal to be transmitted. It's the result of various types of disturbances that tend to mask the information when it occurs in the frequency band of the signal spectrum, i.e. within its bandwidth. Information obesity. Information obesity arises from the overload of information that we consume through interaction with the digital world, according to psychologist Maria Alejandra Castro Arbeláez. Today's world offers us the possibility of being connected at all times. Thus, every day we receive an enormous amount of information that is totally disproportionate to our real needs. It's from this excess that we speak of information obesity. Do you realize that almost everything you think is happening in the world is delivered to you through electronic packages? Almost none of what you believe to be real is based on sensory information you have acquired as an eyewitness. Almost all information is indirect, packaged and shaped information delivered to you through digital sources, which is largely designed to manipulate your emotional response by hijacking your neurology. Thought manipulation. Manipulation of thought and behavior is an accepted part of our daily lives. Every time we block our eyes on a news story, whether on the tube screen tablet or the old-fashioned way through a newspaper, we are buying into a perspective that may or may not be ours own. The use of images to alter our emotions is a centuries-old form of manipulation of behavioral responses, and the media highlights images that shake us, terrify us, and excite us. The stories are bombarded with on television, radio, and even social media often tend to be depressing, fear and anxiety provoking, and spread like wildfire because humans are naturally gossipy. But we all know that there are good things happening in the world, and they are hardly reported because fear is more profitable than joy. Sometimes it's difficult to distinguish misinformation from disinformation, and often manipulation occurs subtly at the unconscious level, which makes it more difficult to identify and therefore to refute. One of the main reasons we allow this is because we are willingly distracted by the media's idea of what we should know. Informational gimmicks. The Internet was given great power to the people to discover the weakness of those who governed their lives. According to Kaiser Report, Max and Stacy talk about what someone called the revolt of public opinion that occurs when ordinary citizens learn the financial tricks of Wall Street that give it an advantage over the rest of the participants in the market. According to Soledad Gallego Diaz, many politicians throughout history have used distraction mechanism as one of the usual weapons of their discourse, managing to momentarily divert attention away from something to which it should be applied, to ensure that voters do not realize precisely what is happening around them, to make them lose track of what should concern them, is a tool already denounced in Greek times. In quotes, the worst thing for the state is not partiality, but destruction, wrote Aristotle. Excuse me. Is the moon a hologram? Incredible footage recorded by Russian cosmonaut Sergei Kutcherkov on the International Space Station shows that the moon appears to deflate as it disappears behind the horizon. In the video, the distorted moon slowly begins to change shape and appears to slowly deflate until it takes the shape of a kind of pancake and disappears into the darkness. The Esoteric and Paranormal World website reveals. Some physicists, including the late Stephen Hawking, are convinced that we live in a giant hologram, a mere illusion with three-dimensional images. Political news. Biden says Trump shouldn't get intelligent briefings. President Biden doesn't believe his predecessor should have access to intelligent briefings because of his erratic behavior, in quotes, and concerns that he might share information, the Democrat said in an interview Friday. In saying this, he reveals that Trump would have access to military intelligence. Trump's impeachment defense will be to fight the process. Lawyers for the former president will make challenges to the process a priority during the Senate impeachment next week, including by questioning whether he can be tried as a private citizen, one of his lawyers said. Identity crisis in the Republican Party. Lawmaker Marjorie Taylor Greene alleged within the Republican Party an identity crisis difficult to resolve, and that this Thursday ended with her expulsion from the committees to which she was assigned, one of the biggest reprimands in Congress. Tribute to FBI agents killed in Florida. The 2 FBI agents were killed last Thursday while on their way to raid an apartment in South Florida for a child pornography case will be honored over the weekend at the Hard Rock Stadium north of Miami. Controversial documentary. My Pillow founder Mike Lindell aired his promised documentary alleging cheating at the polls on Friday and generated a wave of ridicule, with one American news network even issuing a major disclaimer ahead of the show. Economy. U.S. faces risk of bankruptcy and unemployment. The president of the International Monetary Fund warned Friday that the U.S. would face a possible dangerous wave of bankruptcies and unemployment if it did not maintain fiscal support until the health care crisis was over. Unemployment forecast fall for immediate action. 2 top White House economists on Wednesday rejected overly optimistic interpretation of Congressional Budget Office economic forecasts and called for immediate action to avert the risk of persistent and lasting unemployment in the U.S. IMF chief warned of lost generation if countries don't get more help. The IMF president on Friday urged advanced economies to provide more resources to low-income countries, warning of an emerging rate divergence in global growth that could put stability at risk and could trigger social unrest in the coming years. Social networks. GameStop reveals potential for further market stress. As the trading frenzy in shares of the GameStop Corp and other social networking favorites recedes, investors are watching for signs of potential market stress that could affect stocks' performance in the coming weeks. Reddit trading frenzy stalls. Stocks at the center of a recent wave of buying spurred on social networks were trading less frantic Thursday, in a possible sign that the wild swings that reverberated through financial markets were dissipating just as regulators meet to discuss volatility. U.S. senators propose limiting liability shield for the social media platforms. 3 Democratic U.S. senators introduced a bill that would limit Section 230, a law that shields online companies from liability over content posted by users and makes them more liable when posts result in harm. Amazon ordered more than 1,000 natural gas-powered engines from U.S. fleet. Amazon Inc. ordered more than 1,000 truck engines that run on compressed natural gas as it tests ways to shift its U.S. fleet on heavier polluting trucks. Google phones to measure heart and respiratory rate. Google announced Thursday that its Pixel phones will add a feature starting in March that will allow its cameras to measure users' heart and respiratory rates using artificial intelligence techniques. Google announced Thursday that its Pixel phone, it's a repetition of the paragraph 2 times. Exclusive social network. Facebook already has its most exclusive application, and not because it's unique, but because it's exclusive. A user can only be part of the select community of Clubhouse if he has an invitation from someone who is already registered. It is even limited depending on the operating system. It is only available for iOS for the moment. Asia. India shuts down internet in New Delhi. Internet was cut off in some states surrounding New Delhi, an attempt by the Indian government, according to many, to try to discourage and shut down the protests currently taking place regarding the corporate takeover of food production. The new legislation leaves farmers open to exploitation by large corporations and at the same time threatens to destroy their traditional livelihoods, according to the collective evolution portal. Greta Thunberg accused. Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg drew the eye of police prosecutors in India on Thursday after she used social media to offer comments and advice on violent protests by farmers in the country. Activism for hire, Greta Thunberg has caused a furor in India with her endorsement of a farmers' protest, with links to a campaign for Punjab independence. By dismissing climate change for Sikh separatism, the Swedish activist shows her naivety and erodes her credibility. The reality of communism in China: poverty, inequality, and corruption. Some people in Western society have been misled by the claim that communism is a system of equality despite its tyranny. However, when examining the facts and uncensored statistics, what is found is a factory of poverty, inequality, and corruption. Art. Giant xylophone in a Japanese forest uses gravity to play the most ethereal Bach music. The xylophone is made of hundreds of different sized pieces of wood. Each panel along its length emits a different sound when struck by a cascading wooden ball placed on top of the instrument. Dutch design artists create light show in Lakefield to celebrate farms and enhance plant growth. Dutch designer and artist Dan Rosegaarde has turned an ordinary Lakefield into a dazzling light show in celebration of the crops that feed us. Using LED light beams, the program, called GROW, is based on photobiological science that suggests certain combinations of light spectra could produce healthier crops. Spain. Spain will not inoculate people over 55. The Spanish Public Health Authority ruled Friday that the AstraZeneca injection will only be used in people under 55 in the country, due to a lack of sufficient data on its effects beyond that age. Calviño calls for a vaccination passport. The Minister of Economy, Nadia Calviño, said Thursday that the recovery will take root in the second half of the year, for which a common European vaccination passport would be necessary, the main national tourist market. The European Commission's new report on the effectiveness of the European Union's new vaccination policy, which is based on the European Union's new vaccination policy, will be published on Thursday, according to a report by the European Commission. PSOE and Podemos ask the ECB to forgive 300,000 million loaned to Spain. The Guindors believes that forgiving public debt makes no sense. The vice-president of the European Central Bank, Luis de Guindos, has expressed his opinion that the cancellation of public debt held by the European Central Bank wouldn't only be illegal, but would also lack economic sense. This cancellation is demanded by 100 economists in a manifesto headed by Frenchman Thomas Piketty, and to which the president of the PSOE, Cristina Narbona, and the Secretary of State for Social Rights and head of Podemos, Nacho Alvarez, have added. The government coalition burns for the trans and housing law 10 days before the 14th. The coalition of the Spanish government is on war footing with 10 days left for the Catalan elections. Hostilities between PSOE and Podemos have reached unsuspected heights this Thursday. In less than 5 hours, the two government partners have shaken each other at the expense of the trans law and housing. The State Commission of Natural Heritage of the Ministry of Ecological Transition and Democratic Challenge has proposed this Thursday, February 4th, the inclusion of all existing wolf population in Spain in the list of wildlife species and a special protection regime, so it will automatically cease to be considered as hunting species. Europe. Time out in Eurozone. The beginning of 2021 is not going smoothly for the Euro partners. The intense and prolonged second health crisis focused on Central and Northern Europe, in many of whose localities the most affected new confinements have been imposed, and the consequent economic hibernation has retained uncertainties on the effective takeoff of their activity and has reduced the expectations. Merkel and Macron claim EU sovereignty. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron claimed Friday the strategic sovereignty of the European Union despite the return of US diplomacy from the land of the president. Germany accuses Nazi concentration camp secretary of complicity in more than 10,000 murders. German prosecutors have filed charges against a 95-year-old woman they say was complicit in the murder of more than 10,000 people at the Stutthof concentration camp during World War II. An international criminal court says it has jurisdiction in Palestinian territories. Judges at the International Criminal Court ruled on Friday that the court has jurisdiction over possible crimes committed in Palestinian territories, paving the way for a possible investigation. Palestine applauds by BIT decision. The Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Tayyip considered the decision of the International Criminal Court recognizing Palestine as a state party to the court, a victory for justice and humanity, opening the possibility of investigation. America. Mexico City restaurants demand longer opening hours. Mexico City restaurants on Thursday demanded with posts and pans that the authorities allow them to extend their opening hours and open inside the establishments, in addition to maintain service outside. Peruvian journalist who revealed abuses in church is under investigation. Paola Ugaz, Peruvian journalist who revealed abuses within the Catholic organization Sodalitium Christiana Vitae, added a new legal obstacle to the two processes and several lawsuits that exist against her, after the prosecutor's office decided to investigate her for an alleged crime of money laundering. Science. The way we write can be used to predict Alzheimer's disease. Can we predict who will suffer from Alzheimer's disease? According to a recent study, the answer is yes, and in a not very complicated way, simply by analyzing how a person writes when he or she is still healthy. Mars ready for its close-up. China's first space exploration mission to Mars captured its first image of the red planet, the space agency said Friday, about 6 months after the probe left Earth. China's Tianwen-1 probe sent his first photo of Mars. The black and white image was taken about 2.2 million miles from the red planet. Tianwen-1 is expected to enter Mars orbit next Wednesday, February 10th, and in May will attempt to land on the southern part of Utopia Planitia, a vast plain located in the planet's northern hemisphere. In the spacecraft, land successfully will deploy a rover to explore the Martian surface and study its geological structure, environment, atmosphere, and water for a minimum of 90 days. Space race. The US is developing the Artemis program together with several other countries. NASA is scheduled to send the first woman and man to the moon by 2024. The date of the first Russian named flight to the moon remains a question mark. In the meantime, Russia already has a chance to gain a head start on the mission to explore Mars and cooperate with China in lunar exploration. Missing galactic matter. Visible matter is only half of what was expected. But where is the other half? The galaxy's missing matter may be hidden in a cluster of clouds formed with coal gas that are 10 light years away from Earth, according to the study published in monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. Archaeology. Findings at Stonehenge. Prehistoric tombs and strange objects discovered at the site through which the Stonehenge tunnel will pass. British experts also found a Bronze Age Z-shaped enclosure and ancient tools and pottery that provide evidence of human activity at the site more than 7,000 years ago. Galactic rock art in Mexico. What do the rock art graphics found at Huayacocotla hide? Researchers believe that the cave graphics found in the Cueva de la Mesita are associated with the ceremony called Fuego New Fire. This cave houses a pair of panels with graphic elements where drawings related to the constellations Miek and Mamalhuatzli can be observed. And that's all for today. I wish you a happy weekend. Thanks a lot, friends.